Can y'all hear me? Oh, it seems like my mic is finally working. I wonder what happened. Well, without further ado, let me begin. Well, without further ado, let me begin. Welcome to my cozy lodge. If you don't see a fireplace yet, that's because we're just in a living room of mine, as you can see. But, anyways, sorry about that 10 minutes delay from my current time. That's actually not bad. Man, how y'all doing? I hope y'all are doing good. It's Wednesday, and I feel a lot better compared to my other stream I had Monday. I was underprepared, honestly, but it seems like this is going to be a different story. So grab your blankets, because I sure am gonna get my blanket. It's getting cold, and that means a good old hangout at my cozy little lodge. And as you can see, I have some dice on my little desk, so I'm just going to play a little bit of a game so that we can be able to get to know me more. Yeah. But without further ado, I think what attributed to my lack of preparation during last stream was because I ate a lot. And it turns out when I eat a lot of carbs, I tend to go into food coma. And when I go into food coma, I tend to be quite sleepy, and I don't really think straight. Oh, I was just testing my little expressions, and sometimes they can be a little bit weird, but hey, I'm feeling a lot better. I feel a lot more awake, and I'm excited to hang out with you guys. Yeah, I hope y'all are having a wonderful night. I was wondering what would be a nice topic to talk about, and so before I get into further ado, I wanted to update my schedule a little bit. So, originally I listed my schedule, if you remembered, to Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But as you can see, I am a little bit busy on Mondays, so I have a little bit of what they call a Bible study class. I'm a bit of a Christian myself, but besides the point, I'm not available Mondays, so I'm changing my schedule starting next week to Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So that gives me time to prepare for my streams and to prepare for the videos that you see me upload. I am learning a lot as a VTuber. As you know, I have been learning how to make YouTube shorts. Since we are living in an age where short form entertainment and VODs or videos on demand are a thing, it's thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic, TikTok has really become a boom, and people have been relying a lot more on short form entertainment and have want some more short form content in order to pass the time because apparently 20-minute or hour long videos are a little bit too long. But I totally understand that. And so I decided, and so I know how to do shorts now, and so I was surprised by how many views my first short got. And yesterday I uploaded a video where I did my first anime reaction to an episode. My first anime episode reaction. And I've always been doing anime reviews on my own, but I never got a chance to fully upload myself recording an anime episode reaction because I think you might have heard this before, but I wasn't as confident hearing my voice back then being recorded. But becoming a VTuber has really opened that possibility for me to be okay with hearing my own voice. It's what they call gradually expanding your comfort zone from the inside out, and I'm grateful that I've been able to get this far. I didn't exactly overcome this fear per se, but I have been able to shape that in a way that makes it so that I can be able to make it more bearable. But without further ado, yes, you can see me play Genshin, Honkai Star Rail, make reactions to memes and stuff on Tuesdays and on Wednesdays. Technically today's Wednesday, but starting Thursdays, my cozy streams that you'll be seeing more of will be on Thursdays, and you get to hear me nerd out and we can have some thoughtful chats. I was originally going to talk about lore, but I decided to do that later since I'm just getting started. I gotta treat it casually. Saturday's gonna be a grab bag. We talk about various things. It could be gaming. Sorry about that. I just needed some water. You have no idea how excited I am to be recording with you guys because I put a lot more effort into these slides than I thought, and the topics we're going to be talking about, I'm really thrilled. I hope you guys get a chance to be able to learn more about me and find that the cozy days you spend with me will be worth it. But without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so here are some of my favorite Pokemon. As you can see, my first Pokemon game actually was Pokemon Diamond. I remember playing it on my friend's Nintendo DS, and then I remember owning a Game Boy Advance when I was younger. I played Pokemon Fire Red, was it? And my first Pokemon game that I owned on the DS was Pokemon Pearl, and then I got Pokemon Heart Gold. I honestly really enjoyed Pokemon Heart Gold because of being able to start our journey in the Johto region and then go to the Kanto region where the first Pokemon game started. It was honestly really cool. I really enjoyed Ho-Oh and Lugia's design, and the idea of having a battle frontier and to be able to find ways to be able to expand your Pokedex. I really enjoyed that. Before I had my own phone, Pokemon was a part of my world, honestly. I mean, I didn't get my first iPhone or whatever that was called until like I was 13 years old, but I remember having a flip phone, and I'm kind of glad I did because when people are exposed to the internet at an irresponsible age, they tend to look at stuff they're not supposed to, and I appreciate the preventative measures that my parents took. Anyways, I honestly had good memories of Pokemon, and when I got the year I got my iPod for the first time, I remember playing Pokemon Black and White version 2. That is one of my favorite video games, and I remember getting that for Christmas. I also remember I am really blessed because during Christmas time, I didn't just get Pokemon Black and White 2 for my birthday. I was also able to get a Pokedex and manual. As you can see, I like working with manuals so I can be able to know what to do, where I need to find the right Pokemon, where I need to find the right resources. It just really helped me not get lost. And so, without further ado, some of my favorite Pokemon, when someone would ask me, Biscuit, what is your favorite Pokemon? And I'd tell them, My favorite my favorite Pokemon, I would divide it into four categories. Like you see here, my favorite baby Pokemon is Togepi. It's so cute. He's so poofy. I've always liked Togepi, you know? You can't just say no to that design, you know? Anyways, my favorite starter Pokemon that's fully evolved has always been Swampert. Especially when I remember playing Pokemon Alpha Sapphire, I've had fond memories playing with Swampert. It's strong, it can learn a variety of technical moves like Ice Punch and Earthquake, considering it's a water ground. Just get him far away from grass type Pokemon. My favorite non-legendary Pokemon include Hydreigon and Ceruledge. When I first saw Hydreigon's design, I was taken aback. A dark dragon type Pokemon was such a cool design. And Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are one of my latest games. Considering I don't buy video games that often, I fell in love with Ceruledge's design. Just look at those blades. Look at its design. It's a fire ghost. Fire may not be my favorite Pokemon element, but like I mentioned before, my favorite element in Genshin Impact is Hydro, and Hydro stands for what is Hydro is based on water, and water types are some of my favorite Pokemon types. And since I like blue, that's kind of another reason why I like blue and water. My favorite legendary Pokemon is Dialga. I was going to put Palkia in, but I ran out of time. Steel Dragon types. It's not just elegant, it just looks so futuristic, you know? Just taking a little bit of a breath. Since today is going to be, or should I say, tonight is going to be a cozy stream, let's go back to my living room and just chill. I hope you like the design. Canva is a really awesome site where I can be able to make slides and PowerPoints that I never thought would be possible until now, honestly. The more we learn, this is a gradual Now this is the fun part. I'm going to roll a d20 and whatever it lands on, that's what I'm going to talk about. Let's see. Let me start over. 14. Since it landed on 14, I made a little chart where I roll a d20 and whatever side it lands on, that's the topic I talked about. And so, topic number 14 is what is my favorite villain? One of my favorite villains. If you're familiar with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I'm sure you might have heard of Poochie. Poochie has a very exuberant personality. He enamors Dio, Dio is one of the main antagonists of JoJo and is very. You see Dio a lot in memes, but you also see Poochie a lot in memes. And as you can see from Poochie, he has a vision, and yes, he does act to try to stop the Joestar bloodline because he's following Dio, but the way he does it makes him feel a little bit more morally gray. Yes, I don't always approve of his actions, but there's just something profound about the way Poochie talks. And so yeah, Poochie is probably one of my favorite villains. 19. Okay, this next topic is, as I've said earlier, I enjoy making headcanons, especially when there's an anime I like Gachiakta. I can't help but imagine those characters and the setting with characters and settings from other anime. One of my current headcanons is I'm making a little crossover where there are Gachiakta characters in a Magic the Gathering with meet Magic the Gathering. And in Magic the Gathering, there are these aliens called Phyrexians. Phyrexians are these biomechanical aliens that really pervert life, not in a sexual way, but in more of a sci-fi way per se. Anyways, the trash beasts that you see in Gachiakta, headcanon, those are actually Phyrexians. And you know how the Phyrexians want to turn everyone into a Phyrexian, make sure all will be one? Well, the Phyrexian Praetors who support that, there's one of them who doesn't, and his name's Urabrask. And Urabrask, I made this headcanon where Urabrask, the heretic Praetor, meets Rudo, the main character of Gachiakta. And Rudo learns to find the ability to find value in trash. And so Rudo can materialize and give objects that have been discarded new life until they have served their purpose. And as Rudo befriends Urabrask, they both get stronger. Rudo has more control over his ability and can be able to be more creative with the way he turns trash into treasure, per se. And Urabrask becomes stronger and they fight together. Anyways, that's my headcanon. Okay, the dice landed on 13. My favorite superhero. Oh man. Give me a second for this one. I tend to be more of a Marvel superhero fan per se, and recently I have been fond of Wonder Woman. She has a strong sense of justice, but she's also very empathetic. I also enjoyed the first Wonder Woman movie. Contrary to popular belief, I actually don't think Gal Gadot did a bad job as Wonder Woman. That's just my hot take. Water break? Okay, I got a nat 20. You know how I said in like one of my first streams that I plan on singing covers at some point? So I'm going to tell you a little story about how I got into singing. When I was younger, I used to be in these little recitals and I would play the piano, and so it embarrasses me to talk about it at this rate, but I did not like singing growing up. I, for some reason, don't like acapella when people sing acapella or when they sing off pitch. Contrary to that, I happen to have perfect pitch. Long story short, when I grew up, I did not like being a part of singing groups, and I worried that my family, if they heard me sing, they would pressure me into joining a choir or singing in church or being forced to sing outside my comfort zone. And so, for the longest time, I kept my voice shut. Well, I've always talked and breathed and smelled, but I never really sang until like 3 years or so ago. My dad had this app called Smule, and he was singing some covers online. And I asked him, Hey, Dad, if I were to sing a song I liked, you wouldn't force me to join choir or anything after all these years. And he was like, no. And so I went into my closet, I played a song I like, and then I just started singing along, and I felt like the floodgates opened, and I really. Oh, wait. Sorry, I was just testing my little expression hotkeys, and it seemed like they were popping the page when I didn't want them to, so sorry about that. But, anyways, I started singing some songs in my closet, and I literally opened the gates to a new world that I didn't think possible. I became more confident singing. I found a new love for something that I never really got the chance to do all this time because I was too scared to open up that way. And for that reason, I may not be the most consistent at it, but from that point on, I noticed that my singing voice wasn't the prettiest, so in private, I would do these vocal classes. Unofficial, I wouldn't actually do them, I would just find some random vocal training exercises on YouTube so that I can be able to better my breath control, and my voice has gotten better because of that. Anyways, that's what got me into singing, and I definitely plan on singing covers sometime very soon. Sometime in the future, expect a little snippet of me practicing and flexing. Okay, so the dice landed on 5. What is my favorite Pokemon? Well, I answered that already, and it's Togepi, Swampert, Hydreigon, Ceruledge, and Dialga, like you saw earlier. Okay, it landed on 3. Favorite country and why? One of my favorite countries. After I graduated high school, I went to Rome, Italy. I literally walked where Giorno Giovanna walked. I visited the Colosseum. I walked the cobbled streets of Rome. I was able to eat gelato every day. I visited the Vatican. I saw many different fountains and ruins. And I ate authentic carbonara and pizza with some of the fluffiest on the inside, firm on the outside crusts. It was just out of this world. And osso buco, oh my goodness. It really allowed me to gradually expand my culinary comfort zone from the inside out. Well, let me tell you another story actually. If y'all are familiar with the chef Emeril Lagasse, I don't like reading literature, but when I was younger, I used to read a lot of cookbooks, including Emeril Lagasse's cookbooks for some reason. And, when I was younger, because of my autism, I had a relatively small, limited diet. And so I stuck with chicken nuggets, pizza, with cheese pizza, mac and cheese, because actually, I didn't really like pizza when I was younger, believe it or not, because I wanted to play it safe. But the pictures that I saw in the Emerald Cookbook, because I was able to see each of the ingredients and how they were prepared, it made me think, oh, maybe I want to try that. Maybe I want to cook it. And so I became adventurous. It was gradually one of the best. It's thanks to Emerald I was able to try so many different foods. And so I fell in love with the cuisine at Rome. Uh, and to have gelato every day. Rome was one of my favorite places I'd like to visit. Normally, I would put London on this list, but I think London is a little bit crowded. I definitely want to go back to Rome. Oh, so it landed on 9. So what are my favorite board games and or video games? Like I might have mentioned this earlier, but my favorite video games include Genshin Impact, Kingdom Hearts. And as for board games, Apples to Apples is a fun casual game. I also like Magic the Gathering, but not in a competitive sense, but more in a sense where I can be able to experiment with different deck archetypes. One of my favorite archetypes in Magic the Gathering is artifacts. As you can see, I'm an artificer, and I enjoy playing with artifacts. Oh, this is a good one. The dice landed on 10, so what is my hidden fear? Honestly, my biggest fear is to lose my sight. It's a blessing to be able to be a VTuber, and to be able to live the best VTuber experience requires sight. I also like drawing. I also like watching anime. I like playing Genshin Impact. What do those things have in common? I need to be able to see to be able to enjoy those, and it wouldn't be the same if I couldn't see. And sometimes I have nightmares where I would lose my sight, or sometimes I not fantasize, but I imagine the worst. I catastrophize about potential scenarios where I might accidentally get my eyes gouged out, and I dread the possibility of it. Anyways, of all the things that I hope never happen to me, I hope I never lose my sight. That's one of my greatest fears. Like I was talking about Emerald Lagasse, what are some of my favorite meals to cook? I like cooking Alfredo. You can easily buy Alfredo conveniently at a convenience store or a supermarket. Isn't that convenient? I know that sounds kind of silly, but I never buy jarred Alfredo. I mean, I used to when I was younger, but I try not to buy Alfredo from the store because there's just something different about Alfredo that a homemade recipe can't replicate. And so I take pride in my homemade Alfredo. A little bit of butter, garlic, cream, Parmesan cheese, and the secret ingredient black pepper goes a long way. As you can see, I enjoy going to restaurants like Cheesecake Factory that make their own Alfredo or cream sauces, and that is what inspires me to cook my own Alfredo. I have gotten better also at cooking my own preparing my own guacamole. It's surprisingly easy once you have the ingredients, and I take pride in my homemade Alfredo and guacamole, but I also like making Swedish meatballs. Yeah, Swedish meatballs. There's just something about meat and cream pasta dishes. Yeah, Alfredo, Swedish meatballs, and guacamole are my favorite things to cook. Hmm. The dice landed on favorite movie genre, and oh, excuse me. My favorite. I tend to really like action movies because back then I would see them as quite entertaining, but they tend to get my adrenaline pumping, and there's just something so satisfying about seeing heroes try to overcome what the villains have in store. And what's even better is when the heroes try to understand the villains. I hope we get to see that more. But anyways, my favorite genres include action, psychological sometimes. Oh, so what is my favorite theme park? I think I might have mentioned this in one of my previous streams, but my favorite theme park is probably. I haven't visited many theme parks, but the latest one I remember visiting is Epic Universe. It is so aesthetically pleasant. I really enjoyed going to Isles of Berk. You know, it's based on How to Train Your Dragon, and I tried the mac and cheese cones there, which is made with a homemade bread cup, and it was pretty good. But they had this pizza restaurant that's based on an old 1920s movie about a moon, and it's called Pizza Moon. And we literally had a moon shaped pizza where it had roasted garlic, cream sauce, pancetta on top of an ube crust. Fun fact, I used to not really like ube because of the color, but the ube in the crust actually didn't negatively affect the flavor of the pizza at all. And guess what? I loved it. It was one of the best pizza I had ever. And I'm one of those people who prefer going to a theme park for the exclusive meals rather than going there for the rides. Though I was pleasantly surprised at some of like the Dragon Racing at the Isles of Berk, Mario Kart at the Super Nintendo World, and the Frankenstein ride. I tend to like virtual rides, so next time we go to Epic Universe or let's say Universal, I enjoy going to Universal, but let me tell you something. Super Mario World is so I think it's very inspired aesthetically, but it's so crowded and cramped that I couldn't be able to have the best experience. I'd love to try their mushroom soup sometime, but maybe in a time where the theme park isn't as crowded. But I honestly had a wonderful experience at Epic Universe, and it helped that it was so recent, so it's still fresh in my mind. Oh, that's an interesting one. So the dice landed on 12, and 12 says, "What are you learning recently?" Well, I've learned a lot of things actually. Learning how to become a VTuber required me to draw my own model, so I used Procreate to draw my own model. I did that like last a couple months prior, and now I'm currently learning how to use Canva, the site. I'm currently learning how to stream via OBS. And what's funny because I also stream some things from my fellow friends on OBS. So honestly, that partial familiarity with the software made it a little bit easier for me to become a VTuber, and it just comes to show that ah, fate really is a funny thing. And yeah, so I've been learning OBS and Canva recently, and turns out they're not quite bad, and I think I'm getting better the more I experiment. Okay, the dice landed on 11. Something small that brings me joy. Honestly, I have really enjoyed seeing people hug each other. I I am not a romantic type of guy. As an introvert, I get drained by crowds. But and lots of social interaction drains me, and so I'm really grateful to be able to speak from the comfort of my own home without any sensory issues to deal with. But getting onto the point, seeing people hug, it makes me feel warm and fuzzy for some reason, and I enjoy giving hugs to people. Well, I don't feel as comfortable hugging people who might react negatively, so I try to keep to myself. But if they offer a hug and I feel comfortable hugging them back and reciprocating, I like it. And when people who have a deep relationship or friendship with one another hug, it's even more satisfying to watch, and it brings me joy. And I love it when even kids hug their own parents. It just it's warm, honestly. Let's see what dice landed on. 1. What is my favorite planet? Hmm. I haven't studied planets in a long time, but as someone who is very highly attuned to water, I think I like Neptune. It's a very gaseous planet, if I remember correct. I don't know if my knowledge is accurate. It's been so long, but I think Neptune is probably one of my favorites. I don't have much to say there. Oh, the dice landed on 15, so said, what are some cozy rituals I may have? Hmm. You see, I also forgot to mention this, but I really like the Pokemon Belly Bolt too, which came out not recently, but it came out when like Scarlet and Violet came out, and it's so poofy, it's so fluffy. My brother got me a big Belly Bolt plush that is so huggable, and I carry my Belly Bolt to bed every night, and I snuggle with Belly Bolt, and so that's one of my cozy rituals that I have. Even though it's more of a something that I do before I go to bed while I'm asleep, you know? So the dice landed on 4, and so my favorite fantasy weapon. I honestly am fond of the bow, honestly. I said honestly twice. I'm sorry. I have become quite intrigued by the bow because of its long range attacks, and so if I were a Genshin Impact character, or if I were I also like playing the game Kid Icarus Uprising, and they had a variety of weapons from swords to staffs to arms to orbitars. But I honestly liked playing the bow because it had a nice blend of close range and long ranged elemental attacks. And I am honestly, as an introvert, I don't like being sent to the front lines per se. So I think a bow suits me more than a sword per se. I don't see myself being a warrior or a knight, sadly. I mean, I try to be empathetic, I try to be kind to others, but I'm not quite at the level where I'm willing to self sacrifice to that extent. I think that's the autistic part of me that kind of values my own safety, but I also value the safety of others. Don't get me wrong. Just it's hard to help others when you can't help yourself. Let's see. The dice landed on 6. What are my favorite characters to play in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? Oh, I enjoy playing Bayonetta. She's fast. I may not be the best at her, but that doesn't stop me from having a lot of fun playing her, especially with how she slides around the battlefield and has a little bit of a machine gun like and her not final smash, but one of her abilities can allow me to stop time per se. No, actually she can do that during like her counterattack and her final smash, and she delivers a final blow if I attack my opponent enough times while time is stopped. And I also enjoy playing the Koopalings because the Koopalings were a fun little boss that I remember playing against back in New Super Mario Bros. And they just really have a fun Koopa car combat style where you can slide across opponents, you can drop bombs, and the gameplay style of Koopalings is honestly pretty fun. I've also been fond of playing Mega Man. can be a little bit mechanically intensive, but I do like how his smash attacks can have quite long range. And so I enjoy playing Mega Man 2. I also like playing Ice Climbers because they're cute. As you can see, I like cute characters, and Ice Climbers have a nice spin attack that, when they land well, they can deal a lot of damage. But anyways, those are some of my favorite Smash Bros. Characters I like to play. Let me take a breather. Okay, I'm back. That's an interesting one. It says my favorite childhood memory on side 18. And so, my best childhood memory, honestly, growing up, I really enjoyed playing Bionicles when I was younger. I liked collecting Bionicles. I never got a chance to collect all the Bionicles I wanted, but honestly, I was pretty blessed to be able to get all the Titan Bionicles. And I honestly really enjoyed listening to the music videos that would, the commercials that would go on with Bionicle, especially Bionicle Rock, as I would call them, like Move Along by All American Rejects and Cryo Shells by Babylon and Creeping in My Soul. Listening to those growing up were really core childhood memories. And you know how sometimes we don't always remember every detail that happens in our childhood? But I've noticed the best childhood memories aren't the memories that we remember the most amount of details, but they're the they're the memories that we remember best because of how we felt that day. And I felt very good when I listened to those songs growing up, and re-listening to those songs now just kind of hits different, honestly. Sorry for the delay. I realized that my mic picks up a lot, and so forgive me if it got kind of noisy. I was just spinning dice around so that I can be able to figure out what to talk about, and I apologize for the inconvenience, but they kept landing on sides where I already said stuff. So finally, it landed on something that I haven't said before, and so what is my favorite high school subject? I honestly think, looking back, it's language arts. I definitely enjoyed watching the Shakespeare movies, watching the different plays, and being able to do assignments based on those plays, and sometimes even reenacting those plays by reciting lines and acting as those characters. I may not be the best actor per se, but I honestly enjoyed honing my writing skills when I was in language arts. I honestly had, I guess, out of all the classes that I went to, language arts was what I looked forward to the most. I'm going to try to see if my dice rolls to a side I haven't chosen yet, so bear with me. Okay, it landed on two this time, and so the topic I was going to talk about next are what are my favorite Disney characters? That's definitely an interesting question. I've honestly been really fond. What really comes to mind is Belle from Beauty and the Beast. If you watch the original, she definitely is a bookworm who felt out of place in a society that goes through the cogs of life per se, but her kindness was what really warmed the heart of the beast later on, and I honestly really admire her for that. I mentioned earlier that one of my favorite food is creamy pasta dishes, and those are mainly Italian food. But I also am quite fond of Mexican food, like tacos, burritos, and rice dishes. It's interesting because Taco Bell has some very gimmicky, flavorful food options like the quesarito. But honestly, it's kind of sad to know that they have been their prices have been getting a little bit more expensive as of late, and it kind of worries me honestly because fast food is meant to be very affordable, but if fast food's not affordable, what's the point? I think something that I've noticed interesting is Wendy's has frozen fries, and unfortunately, they're not like Five Guys who or Bobby's Cheeseburger, Bobby's who makes their fries hand cut. But one thing that I really enjoyed looking forward to at Wendy's was their natural cut fries because they were cut, but they have some of that potato skin on, and they tend to be really crispy and flavorful. But I've noticed recently that Wendy's fries have not been the same, and it gives me the impression that the suppliers for whoever's supplying their fries, maybe Cisco, is purposely selling low quality frozen fries. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some fries that are frozen that are still good, and Wendy's used to fall into that category, but it gives me the impression that the quality, like lately, Wendy's fries just aren't the same. They aren't as crispy. They tend to sit out longer, and they're not as fresh and natural cut as they used to be. I'm not saying every restaurant needs to be like Five Guys, but it's nice to have a little bit of quality that doesn't feel like the same things you eat. I mean, I already like Wendy's approach for how they make fresh, not frozen beef. It The quality can be a little bit clear as day because burgers, from my experience, that are fresh tend to be juicier, while burgers that are frozen tend to be drier and blander. This is a topic I haven't covered, but I think you guys will like this one. What is some of my favorite animals? Honestly, I really enjoy the capybara. Capybaras, they just have a they have a very dignified look on their face. It they they show no hostility. They get along with animals of various different sorts, and they're just so innocent. Who would not want to like a capybara? If someone didn't like a capybara, that would be kind of concerning. You know, it's interesting. Even though I read katakana and hiragana when I was 3 years old, I learned how to read at a very young age. I used to even draw on those little magnadoodles until the whatever the pens were called would wear down. This was before I even had a phone, so bear with me. This was before I even had an iPad or a notebook. The magnadoodle was my way of communicating and expressing my feelings and art. But anyways, I'm trying to remember my train of thought. I was talking about art, magnadoodles. Hmm, I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, literature. While I did learn how to read at a very young age, and I learned how to write certain things at a young age, like write on the magnadoodle, there were times at high school where I would read books, but that was because my life depended on it. Now that I'm out of high school, I almost never read any literature, but I I do read a lot of articles and I read subtitles when I watch anime. Yes, I watch anime in its original Japanese language if possible. It allows me not only to watch, but read. And I know some people may not like watching something and reading subtitles at the same time. I totally understand that. But for me to be able to watch and read, it's quite an experience. I have an exquisite mind, if I do say so myself. You know, I miss the days where movies that were animated played in cinemas more. Well, technically, we still get CGI movies from Pixar, but Don Bluth said that Pixar and CGI animated movies tend to look a little bit more plastic and not as emotive as traditional 2D animation. And honestly, while I shouldn't agree with everything that Don Bluth says, I agree with a lot of what he says. And concerning CGI movies, no offense, but I do think they do kind of have that plastic look. And it's kind of sad because Disney doesn't make as many animated movies as they used to. They have made a lot of live action remakes. And honestly, I feel very conflicted about how they've been making a Moana live action movie. Don't get me wrong, the first Moana movie was pretty good, but I it wasn't my favorite, but the fact they're making a live action out of it using mostly CGI, it just comes to show that they're beating a dead horse at this point. Disney live action remakes are some of the reasons why I am not catching up to a lot of movies nowadays, but Zootopia 2 was an exception, honestly. And one of my first movies I remember watching was Atlantis the Lost Empire, and I think the blend of 2D and CGI technology at the time was very much revolutionary. And I miss when movies would take risks like that. Nowadays, movies that are produced nowadays, they just want something that's guaranteed and guaranteed to succeed, trying to appeal to everyone. And honestly, I think it's a little bit tiresome. But movies like Wicked kind of give me hope, honestly. Like Wicked, Zootopia, K-pop Demon Hunters, they give me hope. And let me tell you another thing that's on my mind recently. Magic the Gathering has been fun, but Universes Beyond is kinda eh. I used to spend a lot of money on Magic the Gathering when I was younger, and I was working at Amazon, so that kind of makes sense why I would spend a little bit more money then. But I don't know, I felt less inspired to spend money on Magic the Gathering since I don't play in person Magic the Gathering as much recently. So, and it doesn't help that most Magic the Gathering sets, since their universes beyond, they're adapting different IPs, and honestly, it feels like they're more concerned about profit more than making a game that audiences and players can remember. And it's kind of sad because this isn't just something that I see in Magic the Gathering, but in anime and Disney as well. And that's why I'm grateful that we can go back and revisit some of these movies like Atlantis the Lost Empire. It just kind of shows that there was a creative vision that existed, and we can still hope for things like that, you know? I think one of the reasons why Demon Slayer is so popular is. Wait, why did my. Hmm, that's weird. Sometimes I noticed when my. When I move my face, not my face, but my hand over my face or try over my mouth, it can look a little bit weird on screen thanks to VTube Studio. I don't know why that is the case, but I've really enjoyed the latest Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba movie that I watched, and it just comes to show that anime still is capable of telling creative stories that aren't exactly tied by the entertainment industry standards of guaranteed success. Whilst, don't get me wrong, Demon Slayer looks great still, and I think it appeals to a very broad audience. And I think part of that success comes from how heartfelt Tanjiro is as a protagonist. He's very empathetic, and even though he kind of has that vengeful energy against Kibutsuji Muzan or Michael Jackson, as we colloquially, he looks like Michael Jackson, doesn't he? Yes, Kimetsu no Yaiba is based on a shonen manga, but UFO Table, who turned Fate Zero and Fate Stay on Unlimited Blade Works into golden masterpieces, made what looks like a good manga and turned it into something excellent. I really appreciate the craftsmanship from the music to the visuals put in Demon Slayer, and the Infinity Castle movie definitely is a hallmark of Demon Slayer at some of its finest. And the movie was also really good because of the redemption arc. The redemption arc was what makes Demon Slayer Demon Slayer. It's very memorable, honestly. Hmm. If I were to choose if it were too hot, if I wanted to be too hot or too cold, uh, as someone who easily gets overwhelmed by the environment, I would choose neither, but I would slightly lean into too hot because I can at least de-layer. But if I'm too cold, my body becomes numb. But I notice when I get too hot, I tend to have allergic reactions. Like, I remember one time where I was sleeping in a tent and it got really hot. And so I was taking off my outer clothes and jacket, and I realized my nose was getting a little bit stuffy and sneezy and uncomfortable. And so, to answer your question, I would not prefer being too hot or too cold, honestly. Thank you guys for being able to come to this stream. And it seems like we've gotten a lot more views on here. It comes to show that it helps to be a little bit better prepared and to not be too full for my streams. And if I keep this up, I hope you guys look forward to the stories that come. And so thank you guys for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. And if you do, you can be able to see more of how I continue to grow and to be able to continue to live my life and progress as a VTuber. Hope to see you around.